the way the Britishers constructed it was that the government seat was on the hill, and the area for the public, the National Museum and the gardens and so on, they were below the hill, so to speak. They were below the incline. So the idea behind that was the public is below, the government is above. Now this is being flipped, right? So the government secretariat and all the ministries are now on the flat ground, and the public museums are moving above the hill on the Raisina Hill. Right. So this is a very interesting change in how the power dynamic between the public and the government has been restructured. And I think that that's how it should be in a democracy. The public is above.
Namaste everybody, welcome to Chaitya Media. This is your host Sharan Sethi. Today we are joined by a very good friend of mine. He's a brand consultant, an author, and has also worked with Netflix in the past in producing the show. Jash Tolani, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us.
Great to see you, Sharan. I hope your day is going well.
I hope the same for you too. Yes, it's been so far so good for me.
Great. Yeah.
Jash, today we are talking about the Central Vista project, and you have some great insights to share with us. Now, the first thing that everybody is saying, anybody who's opposed to the project is saying, is that we are living through a pandemic, and this project is supposed to be at an estimated cost of $2.7 billion. Now, just because some Indian politicians need to have a little extra leg space, is it actually worth spending so much money?
Yeah, no, that's a great way to phrase it. But I think what the critics miss often is that it's a little bit more than a little extra legroom. What is really happening with this project is that the way governance is conducted is being reimagined. Now, I don't want to throw a lot of long words and jargon at you or our dear viewers. So let me break that down. Let me give you 3 words, right? Delimitation. Let me give you the second word, which is earthquakes. And the third word is productivity. Okay. Delimitation is when we match the number of people in the country with the representatives. Now, when we all know that the Indian population has exploded in the last 75 years, right? But the size of the parliamentary house remains the same. That means that the number of our representatives can't go up significantly, but the number of the people in the country has been shooting up astronomically. We had 1 MP every 7 million people, at the start of our journey at independence, and now we have 1 MP every 22 million people. So what happens when 1 MP is representing so many millions of people is that perverse incentives start to climb up atop one another. So if one person is representing so many different people, there's no good way in which because the interests of half the people or of a quarter of the people will be very different from the other 5 million people in the same state or in the same part of the country. And so we need more representatives, and that is delimitation. And that can only happen once we expand the size of our parliamentary house. Now, some people say, oh, just expand sitting in the old house. It's not possible. It's just structurally not possible. The current house can only have 550 members or thereabouts. And the new house, which is being constructed, can have 888 members. So we are good for the next few decades, perhaps even the next 2 centuries. And it can be expanded up to 1,200 members for joint sessions. So that's the first reason, the delimitation. The second thing I said was earthquakes. Delhi is in a seismic 4 zone. The current parliamentary building is constructed to withstand shocks that happen in seismic 3 zones. To put it more simply, Delhi can expect earthquakes that may well bring down the parliamentary house. Now, that is the center of power. It is the seat of the Indian government. Are we comfortable with that level of natural vulnerability? I'm not. I want a seismic 4-level building where the seat of our government can be properly established. So we need to take that into account as well. The third thing I said, right? The third thing I told you was that when you're discussing this issue, one thing that people don't mention as often is productivity, right? The work that we do, and this is something we have all realized in the era of work from home, is that the work we do is very often dependent on the workplace. Like we take so much effort and we put so much sweat into improving our workplaces and our desk and making sure everything's right. the current workplace of our ministers, the 51 ministries across Delhi, first of all, they are all separated from each other. So much of government work cannot be put online due to classified reasons, right? Due to you want the secrets of the government in some cases to stay on paper, right? You don't want some hacker to get access to it. But because of all these ministries are so far apart from each other, their communication is very slow, right? So what the new plan is doing is it's putting all of these 51 ministries in close geometric proximity to each other so that their work experience, their workflow, their productivity increases. And so these are great reasons to redo our parliamentary house and the surrounding Central Vista area. Yeah.
Right. Just all said and done. Now, giving the benefit of the doubt to the government, saying that due to the mentions that you have cited here, that this particular project is going to be of any productive use. But is it the right time is what the critics are saying? We are facing a very deadly pandemic and the economy has been in a severe crisis. So is it, does the government have a moral authority to go ahead with the project is what they're saying?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and timing matters, in sport, in governance, everywhere, timing of course matters, but I think this is exactly the right time. I think the more we delay it, the more problems we will run into. For example, every year, these ministries, which I talked about, flung all across Delhi, are in buildings which are in poor shape and they are paying rent to be there, because there is no central secretariat where all these ministries can be brought together under the same set of compounds. So the rent runs into thousands of crores per annum. And so no matter the cost of this project, it will save us 1,000 crores per year. So it's an investment. We're going to be saving so much on the rent. And then you said, why can't we delay it? Construction costs, the materials that go into construction have increased by 35% in the last 1 year. This is a construction project. So the more we delay, this construction project becomes more expensive. So by hurrying along, by not stopping, the government is actually saving the taxpayer money. The more, it's so politically easy to delay it. You could just say, oh, we have just diverted all our attention to the coronavirus pandemic. As a government, you have fewer things to do. And you also ratchet up the moral points of paying attention on healthcare and paying attention on the pandemic only. You could look good, you could sort of gain points from doing that, but they have chosen not to do it. And they've chosen to keep their focus on the goal. And I think that's very, that's worth a compliment or two. And the final thing that I want to say, you asked me, what is the public getting out of it, right? It's an interesting thing to note that the Central Secretariat is based on some sort of a hilly area. It ends with the Raisana Hill at one end. And the way the Britishers constructed it was that the government seat was on the hill, and the area for the public, the National Museum and the gardens and so on, they were below the hill, so to speak. They were below the incline. So the idea behind that was the public is below, the government is above. Now this is being flipped, right? So the government secretariat and all the ministries are now on the flat ground, and the public museums are moving above the hill on the Raisana Hill. Right. So this is a very interesting change in how the power dynamic between the public and the government has been restructured. And I think that's how it should be in a democracy. The public is above. That's
a very interesting answer, Josh. But it brings me to my next question. If you're constructing something of a heritage, an impact that it is going to leave on Indian democracy, the opposition is saying that they felt left out because they weren't consulted on this project.
Yes, well, I might take this chance to remind the opposition that they were also left out a few, maybe 2 years ago when the public voted. The public sort of left them out of the polling booth, so to speak. And 5 years before that, also something similar had occurred. And this democracy is a word that gets thrown around a lot, right? Now, let me ask you a question. What is the parliament for, right? Like, what is that place? What does that place exist for? What do we do there?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah. Just, what happens there? We discuss laws, right?
Yes, like we pass laws, yes.
We pass laws there. Now, is this a law? It's not a law, it's a building, right? So when the executive is voted into power, it has some leeway, it has some freedom, it has the backing of the public. to make new laws which will affect the lives of 130 billion 130 crore Indians for the next decades and centuries. To make laws, we discuss it with the parliament, all the people. This is not a law, it's a building. And the government has the right to go ahead with infrastructural projects that it feels are good for the country in the long term and the short term and the medium term. So that is a right that the government is exercising at the moment. That is my simple answer. And when the parliament, when the opposition leaders in the parliament and outside of the parliament, more often outside because they love to tweet, what they say is that, this is a criminal wastage. This should not be happening. They forget, first of all, that it's not a criminal wastage. And second of all, when you talk about their own plans in the past, in the recent past as well, in the distant past, in the realm, in the regime of Rajiv Gandhi, there have been discussions of a new parliamentary building in 2011 under Congress and in 1986 under Rajiv Gandhi. So it's an open secret that the building cannot sustain the activity and the number of people who are going to pour into it in the coming future. And they wanted to do it too. We just wanted to do it, and then we actually did it. The distance between of course, I'm not the minister of infrastructure for India, but I mean the BJP, the government in power had the political wherewithal to actually follow through on a plan that basically everyone was aligned for, like yesterday.
Right. That's a very smart answer. In fact, I do miss the times when we were debating against each other.
Yeah.
But of course, owing to the limitations of certain mediums and platforms, we will, however, continue this debate once we end this interview. But that brings me to my next question, Josh. Now, what the opposition is also saying is that the BJP is trying to leave an ideological footprint through building monuments. For example, the Sardar Patel statue. It's very ironic that they say that, but also with the Central Vista project, do you see any interaction between the ideological leanings of the BJP and the architecture that is planned?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, right? Because essentially, like, your point is that is there such a thing as a right-wing architecture or a left-wing architecture? And I'm not sure if there is, but I think there's such a thing as a progressive architecture and a conservative architecture. Like, a progressive architect would want to break away from old norms and create new shapes. And you often see this in like new forms of architecture in the 20th century in, say, Russia, or the USSR rather, where you had these buildings which looked very odd. Like, they would have geometric shapes and they would move away purposefully from symmetry. And a conservative architectural thinking would want to preserve the beauty of the classical style of architecture. Like, if you go to a temple which is 700 years old, or I recently went to this Pavagadh Hill Station where the temple had been ransacked multiple times across centuries, and finally they rebuilt it, I think about 250 years ago, but it had been ransacked like multiple times, and they rebuilt it on the old plans. And so it's a very old looking building. There's a certain beauty to it, and there's a certain grandeur and elegance to the old architectural style, and a conservative style would want to preserve that. And a progressive style would want to create new shapes and create just new forms. And I think as far as this whole progressive, conservative tension exists in all architecture. And Bimal Patel, the architect behind the newly designed Central Vista, has talked about how some people in India like avant-garde buildings, these cubist, weird looking buildings that are not following any line or any symmetry. But then other people, perhaps like me, like pre-modern buildings. They like old buildings. They like the symmetry of the temple rising to the center and then a spire on top, right? So, so he talked about the tension of balancing these two different stylistic preferences. And there's only so much you can tell from the design. So once it's done, we can both go and take a stroll down the new Central Vista and see if it's more progressive or more conservative looking.
I want to throw a follow-up on this. I mean, if you don't mind.
Sure.
There seems to be a logical fallacy with the argument that you're making, especially because when you talk about progressive architecture, yes, what the government is trying to do definitely qualifies as one. But then if we were to revisit what has happened, especially with the Mughal invasion, with what Aurangzeb did, a lot of our architecture, that definitely cannot be termed as something progressive, can it be? So is there a definitional problem here is what I'm trying to say?
Right, right. No, that's a good question, because essentially the problem with conserving in India is that what do you want to conserve? Do you want to conserve the colonial style? Do you want to conserve the Mughal style? Do you want to conserve the? There were other invaders. Let's not forget, before before the Britishers and the Mughals. And so, what exactly are you conserving? Like, to reach a purely Indic style, you have to go back to like the 5th century modern empire. You know, I might get my dates wrong, and the history nerds in the comments will bay for my blood. But you know, the essential point here is that what are you conserving? And that is a question that India perhaps struggles with more than any other country. And it's an open question. You know, we do want to step into the future, we do want to hold on to an identity, but which identity? And whenever we are discussing art forms, whenever we are discussing even political forms of governance, like, what are we conserving? Yeah, I think this is a question which is beyond my pay scale at this point, but perhaps few months down the line there could be a follow-up, and I'll have something more satisfying for you.
Absolutely. Just
Yeah.
that brings me to my last question, and you've raised some really pertinent points. What can you tell us that perhaps very few people know about the Central Vista project? Because you did mention this in our research call that you have something very interesting to share with our viewers.
Yeah. No, I do have something very interesting to share with the viewers. And I think so. I was listening to Bimal Patel a lot, right? The chief architect. And I was listening to his interviews, I was reading his articles. And he talked a lot about how the new parliamentary building will borrow a lot of elements from the old one, right? So it will have elements, for example, the flooring will be similar, the finishes on the wall, the texture will be similar. You know how jalis hang from the ceiling sometimes? They will carry that from I mean, they won't carry the same jali, but they will create new looks which fit that old look. The colors will be similar, right? So from the floor to the ceiling, they were actually borrowing a lot from the old building so that the new building doesn't look ugly next to the old one, because remember, they are right next to each other, so they have to blend in well. But you know, one thing which I did not hear him mention, and which I want to mention, is that there's a big difference also. The big difference is the old building is circular, the new building is triangular, right? They may occupy the same elevation, so they are the same size, and they may occupy the same rough area, but their shape is different. Now, here's how I interpret it, right? As someone who is interested in architecture, as someone who's written about architecture, here's how I interpret it. What does a circle signify for us, right? A circle signifies, in religious and mythological language, a cyclical existence, right? ये संसार एक चक्कर है, right? You end up where you start, right? That's what happens when you trace your finger on a circle.
Right.
A triangle signifies completely different things. A triangle, for me, gives me a sense of direction, right? You know what's triangular? An arrowhead, right? When you shoot an arrow, the arrowhead is triangular. So an arrow for me signifies forward momentum. A mountain is classically thought of as, and it is a triangular, pointing at the sky. So a triangle has this ability or this nature or this trait to point forward or to point upward, right? And a circle doesn't have that. And I think that's a very interesting shift. I think that's a very interesting change. And you know, a lot of people don't know this, but a triangle has more structural integrity than a rectangle, right? Because in 1989, Tokyo engineers were thinking of building a 500-story building, right? And Tokyo, as we all know, is very earthquake prone, right? They are on that tectonic shift where a lot of earthquakes break out. And so they were like, you know, if we want a building that tall, और यहाँ पे earthquakes होते रहते हैं, what do we do? And so they were like, you know, one answer is to build a triangular skyscraper, because even they knew back then that a triangle is very resistant to earthquakes and has the structural integrity. And if I were to paint a picture for you in your head, like if you can imagine a square building or a rectangular building, when strong winds are coming, or when you have a dust storm, or when you have a flood, right, the force is hitting the wall straight, right? But when you have a triangular building, the sides of the triangle are helping the wind or the flood waters to sort of go past it, right? And to not put that singular pressure on that one wall. And so as a structure to a triangle represents for me strength and forward direction. Right. So this is something I haven't heard the architects mention, but that is how I have interpreted this interesting change in shape.
Absolutely interesting. I mean, the symbolism behind a lot of our architecture, it takes years together to sort of interpret it in the right way. And more often than not, even those interpretations are often contested because everybody has their own way of looking at architecture. But these are some very, very interesting insights, Josh. In fact, even I've personally learned a lot from what you have to say. I'm really glad we could do this session, and we definitely hope that you can join us for future conversations.
I'd love to, Sharan. I'd love to. Let's hope we can catch up in person sometime soon.
Absolutely, 100% looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks, Sharan. Thanks. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. And to all our viewers, please do like, share, and subscribe. We will be updating you with our current affairs show on a daily basis on a wide range of topics.
Yes, if not for me, then please like, share, and subscribe for Sharan's lovely background behind him.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Nice day. You too. Bye.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.